On the morning of May 16, 2008, 13-year-old Aarushi Talwar was found murdered in her bed. She lived with her parents in a wealthy, quiet suburban neighborhood in Noida, India. The family's live-in domestic worker, a 45-year-old man named Hemraj, was missing from the apartment. Police and the public immediately assumed he had committed the crime and fled. Then, the very next day, police made a second discovery. Hemraj's partially decomposed body was found hidden on the apartment building's own locked terrace. With the prime suspect, now a victim himself, hidden behind a padlocked door, a seemingly straightforward domestic homicide turned into a complex, locked-room mystery. Solving a case like this requires immaculate forensic work, but the Uttar Pradesh police failed to secure the scene during the critical first 48 hours. Look at this floor plan. Instead of taping off the area, police allowed crowds to freely walk from the entrance directly into Aarushi's bedroom. Bloody footprints were wiped away. The locked terrace door was completely ignored. Trace evidence was trampled into oblivion. The destruction of the physical evidence left the investigation without a factual anchor. This allowed the police and the public to begin constructing their own stories based on little more than speculation. By late May 2008, the UP police made their first major move. They arrested Aarushi's own father, Dr. Rajesh Talwar. The official forensic theory held that the victims' throats were slit with clinical precision. Investigators claimed the weapon was a small, highly sharp instrument, like a surgical scalpel. Since both of Aarushi's parents were practicing dentists, police used this medical profile to point the finger directly at them. Instead of building a quiet, evidence-based case, police officials held highly publicized press conferences. They fed unverified theories and alleged motives directly to reporters. The media took these leaks and exploded them into a daily spectacle. News channels broadcast rumors of honor killings, secret affairs, and elite wife-swapping rings. Before a court of law ever saw a single piece of physical evidence, this relentless trial by media had effectively convicted the parents in the public eye. In June 2008, the Central Bureau of Investigation, or CBI, took over the case. They abruptly pivoted away from the parents and arrested 3 domestic workers from the neighborhood. To match these new suspects, the official forensic theory completely changed. Investigators now claimed the delicate surgical cuts were actually made by a traditional Nepali kukri, a heavy, curved blade. To extract confessions, the CBI relied heavily on narcoanalysis. This is a highly controversial interrogation method where suspects are injected with psychoactive drugs to induce a hypnotic, uninhibited state. Despite sparking a brand new media frenzy, the drug-induced statements yielded nothing actionable. The CBI failed to find any physical evidence linking the 3 workers to the crime, and they were quietly released. By this point, the absurdity of the investigation was fully exposed. The physical profile of the murder weapon and the motive behind the killings were actively mutating to match whoever happened to be in custody. A year later, a brand new CBI team took over the files, and the investigation pivoted right back to the parents. This team introduced a third and final weapon theory. They claimed that blunt force trauma found on both victims perfectly matched the dimensions of a number 5 golf club, which was owned by Rajesh Talwar. Despite the match in size, forensic testing on the club turned up nothing. No blood, no DNA, and no biological fluid was ever recovered from the weapon. By this stage, forensic evidence was untethered from reality. It had become a tool used to justify whichever theory the investigators favored at the time. In 2010, the legal proceedings took a bizarre turn. The CBI filed a formal closure report, officially admitting to the court that they simply did not have enough evidence to convict Rajesh and Nupur Talwar. In a shock decision, a special magistrate rejected the agency's closure report and ordered the parents to stand trial anyway. In November 2013, based entirely on circumstantial arguments and the highly contested golf club theory, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Without a definitive murder weapon, eyewitnesses, or hard forensics, the legal system had seemingly bowed to the heavy weight of a biased public conscience, one shaped by years of sensationalized television rather than concrete proof. 4 years later, in October 2017, the Allahabad High Court struck down the conviction, ruling that the prosecution had failed to establish guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. the parents were freed, returning the saga to square one. After nearly a decade of arrests, trials, and endless media coverage, Aarushi and Hemraj were officially the victims of an unsolved double murder. The core tragedy of this case happened in the very first hours. Because the physical crime scene was destroyed by heavy foot traffic on day one, the objective truth was permanently lost. In the absence of evidence, investigators and the media chose to fill the space with shifting narratives and spectacle. Because they focused on telling a compelling story rather than protecting the facts, the real killers will likely remain in the shadows forever.